And good afternoon, everybody. Today is again our Lunch and Learn special. Today is coming by the way of Errol Alton, who actually happened to be a student of mine many moons ago. He's by far has excelled and exceeded anybody's expectation, including his own. And he's far beyond where I am today. Now, all kidding aside, Errol is one of these good guys who has great positive energy and has lots to contribute to society. And I'm really happy that he's with us today. He's a brilliant young entrepreneur, but he really delivers values to his employer and as well as the people that he coaches and mentors along the way. So Errol, without any further introduction, take it away and enjoy the 30 minutes.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Walter, and hello, everybody. I'm just going to start by saying, like, Walter's been a phenomenal mentor through the years, and we've had like a lot of frank conversations, honest conversations. Sometimes it's hard to find someone who can actually, like, give you some unbiased thinking, and I've always taken that and use that to my advantage. And Walter, I still have a brainstorm chart that you created, and I remember when you said it, he was like, "Oh, this is so good." You signed your name and did like a C. I was like, what is that? You said copyright. So I still have that. It's pretty hilarious. So today we're going to talk about building culture through communication styles. I have an exciting activity planned. Walter, I would love for you to join in as part of it. I'll join in as part of it as well. But because we only have a limited amount of time, I'll kind of expedite through some of these slides, not a whole bunch of slides, not slide heavy, but the whole goal is to leave you with a tool that you can actually use tomorrow morning or whenever you use it, right? So we're going to talk about building culture through some communication styles. Give you a quick little background on me. This is when it's my best looking. Just have some expertise in organizational and team development. You'll also, if you ever followed me online, you'll catch me tapping into those spaces, or also career development. Aligned to that, created and launched, then directed a community workforce program, and that focused on just personal development and workforce development. Happy to deep dive in any of that. And if you ever have a spare moment between meetings, or you feel like checking out somebody's TEDx talk, check out Solutions. That's a talk that I did about getting to the heart of data, because it's important that as you guide teams and you drive performance of the project, you remember that there are people on the other side and behind that data, behind those numbers, right? So tapping into the passions in our work, all right? So I also include a recent fun fact. Walter, because this is being recorded, people are going to be like, what? This is going to stay for life. But considering about getting a Doberman puppy, that's about to be a first-time dog owner.
Good for you. Great choice.
Yeah.
Go with a Great Dane instead, though.
Say that again?
Go with a Great Dane.
I live in a New York City apartment.
It's okay.
They're
big, small dogs.
They're big, small dogs. So that's my recent fun fact. So let's dive in our objectives. We're going to define how communication impacts culture, talking about team culture, individual identities, and how that plays into team culture, and then positive and negative affirmations towards our culture. And then we're going to learn and practice this exploratory tool called Compass Points activity, which I will make sure I share that PDF with Walter so that he can make sure he posts on the platform for us. And it's a fun and exciting activity that I've used, and it continues to just be completely impactful for whatever team or industry you're a part of. So participation, we ask that you react, capture notes, if possible, camera on, because majority of this is going to be discussion based, right? So let's talk about your company's or organization's culture, right? So I want us to take 1 minute probably to just ponder and think about a company you've been a part of or are a part of, and think about the qualities of, let's describe it, whether it's think about the vision, the mission statement, values, or any of these side areas here, like management styles. I want you to just quietly think about your own company's organizational vision. And it's okay if you don't also remember the vision statement of it or the mission statement, but just give like some thought to it. So Claudine, I'm actually going to come to you, and then Danielle, I'm going to come to you right after. And don't feel like you have to give like this profound answer at all, right? Just off the top of your head, like what are some things that would describe your company's or organization's culture? Go ahead, Claudine.
Well, I work with Montefiore, so I think their mission is to provide patient-centered family care. So incorporates pretty much a holistic approach to the care of patients. And also via interdisciplinary and interdepartmental collaboration, so that this care can be as effective as possible.
Love it, love it, love it. So Claudine, you really, it's funny that I hear, and good that I hear a lot of. It sounds like you have full clarity and scope on the company's mission and vision statement, and just how that translates and connects to your own department and team. So very good. What about you, Danielle? Thanks, Claudine.
You're welcome.
Danielle, if you're with us, or probably you didn't hear us, and then Walter, I'll come to you. Just to
yes, I'll go to me. I mean, my company is my own company, right?
Yeah.
The vision is to be authentic and to be pragmatic. The mission is to be focusing on our emerging leaders and provide them with the support to build their skills, knowledge, and abilities to bridge the gap from being a highly technical person to becoming a highly effective leader,
right?
And thereby driving quality, safety, and other outcomes. The values is about transparency and honesty and availability.
Right. Well, so you see, so now we have a scope when we think about culture, or a company's culture, and how we and how that culture communicates. We start thinking about stuff. Thank you, Walter, for that. Right? Like, what vision do you have? Does the company have? What mission does it have? What values? What are people's management styles? What are their approach? How do folks get hired or promoted within that company? Right? All fits in with the culture of the company. Now let's switch it to your team. Maybe it's your department. Right? Your department's culture. And so, yeah, your department may not have like a full vision statement, but it might have a mission statement aligned to that vision, right?
Mm-hmm.
It may have norms. How do we speak at meetings? How do we show up in meetings? How do we communicate? You know, are we very structured? Are we a little bit relaxed? Yeah. And then,
should we just starting to teach the team Concord? So everybody's working on the team Concord to actually developing this piece of the puzzle. They did it on their own, and now they're doing it for the team.
And so to align to that, as y'all are deepening the work there, right? You're seeing all of your team culture, whatever it is, your team culture is, it has to be aligned to the company culture, organization culture, but it is unique in itself, right? And then with that, you have personalities on your team. And you have different ways of you got your work self under pressure, you got your relaxed self, you got, how does that interact with other folks as well? So I want us to continue to think about the alignment between team culture and company culture and how we communicate that. All right. I want to let us know that these can be two different things, right? You could be in a company that has really toxic culture, but have really positive team culture. And say, look, we're thriving and surviving and going through this. So, all right. So obviously with that comes, and I'm not going to deep dive on it. I'm pretty sure you'll find some opportunities covered with the multiple stages of team development, right? So as you develop a team, and I'm not going to go too deep here, right? Because for time, but it's how you form the team together. It's okay to have conflict and storm in a team, right? A lot of folks think that means things are going bad in a team. You should have conflict. If you're in a relationship, if you never fight in a relationship, and doesn't have to be toxic fight, then are you really talking? Are you really communicating, right? There's healthy ways to do it. And then norming, performing, and then starting over the team, right? So I'm not going to go too deep into that, but I just wanted to have this here as a focal point, that this is all part of how when we talk about how our team culture operates and how we communicate, it all feeds into the stages of team development. All right, moving through, there's one more slide here I'm gonna skip over. All right, so here's the activity I want us to give a shot at, right? We're gonna do this here, right? So as you see, there are 4 signs located on this compass point. This is our compass point activity. There's 4 signs. There's north, south, east, and west, okay? I'm gonna read each one, and as I read them, I want you to think about which one sounds more like you and how you communicate on teams. The north folks are, let me just pause here. You can also be more than one sign. So if you lean towards like northeast, that's okay as well, okay? So as I read them, I want you to start processing. So north folks are acting folks. They're the let's do it. Let's take action. Let's try things. Let's plunge in. We don't need to, we need some information, but let's go towards the goal. That's north folks. And we've got the east folks, speculating folks that say, look, first let's back up and see the big picture. Let's see all the possibilities, good and bad. I need to know the whole scope. How does our project connect to, our project connect to the entire organization's direction? And, I just need a bigger scope on this thing before we get started. Then you've got the folks here on the south. Those are our caring folks. They like to know that everyone's feelings have been taken into consideration and that their voices have been heard before acting. Those are the folks that say, let's make sure we get that opinion from that department or that team member, or, hey, I know that this person's usually quiet. Do you want to contribute in any way? And we want to make sure we didn't miss you. These are the caring folks. These are also the folks that leave a little gift on your desk every now and then, right? And then the West folks, speculating. They pay attention to detail. They like to know the who, what, where, when, how, and why before acting. They want to know the deets, the details, all right? So right now I'm going to do a silent minute. I want you to think about which one or which direction points do you most likely gravitate towards.
Do we need Jeopardy music?
I usually play music, because this is recorded. We might run into copyright issues. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
YouTube will pick up on that. Careful.
Yeah, the whole video gets blacked out. All right, so let's start, Claudine, and then Danielle, if you're within the sound of a voice here, and then Walter. And then I'll say myself, right? So Claudine, which sign do you most gravitate towards?
I think southeast.
Southeast, interesting, right? Looking at the big picture, also caring for folks. Okay, we'll get a chance to debrief and expand upon that. Good, southeast, we got a southeast person. What about you, Danielle? Danielle might be experiencing some connection issues with us today. Well, Danielle, if you hear us hop in, go ahead, Walter.
Yeah, so interesting, right? So the exercise, if I look at it, depending on who my audience is and what my message is to target, try to target, I can be any one of these. My intrinsic self, I would lean towards the southeast as well, being a servant leader, but still have that vision on that bigger picture and the possibilities. And we can talk a little bit more about that. But there are components of all 4 of them that surely are part of me.
Ah, gotcha. Okay. So you're more, just like Claudine as well, you're more southeast, but you're also saying that it depends on the room you're in or probably the team you're on, right?
Correct.
Okay. I'm definitely a north person. I like to jump in, let's do this, right? And then I gravitate towards northwest, right? So that west of, all right, let me think about the details of it. So I go from, let's go for it, let's think about the details. And then I actually shift gears at some point, okay? And I go towards south because I know that there's the human aspect of the work, right? I don't want to miss folks because lessons learned, right? As you're growing as a leader, like you learn that, what's your strong areas and what areas do you tend to have a gap on or kind of blind spot on, right? And so as much as I'm like, go, 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 I also know, whoa, check in on people, make sure people are good, hear people out, even if it's non-work related, hear people out, right? Because we're human beings doing a role. All right, so think about your sign. And I want you to self-assess to some imaginary Jeopardy music. And I want you to answer these 5 things for yourself, right? What are the strengths of your style, your compass point? Think about 4 adjectives or a few adjectives for that. What are the limitations of it? What style do you find most difficult to work with, and why? And what do people from other directions or styles need to know about you so you can work together effectively? And then lastly, what do you value about the other three styles? Now I'll leave this up. We're probably not going to get to answer all of these, which is okay, but think about, as a participant, and think about you, I think Walter right now, and Claudine for being Southeast folks. Let's start tackling this one by one, and I'll share from the Northwest perspective, right? So what are the strengths of your style?
I think my strengths would be because I'm a caring person, so I kind of tend to also want to get the perspectives of others, and to at least hear what they're thinking. More like, especially since it's like a team approach, so you want to get the perspective. So you don't seem as if, okay, you're the only one making the decisions. And one of my limitations is that maybe I could maybe focus too much on trying to think of what others believe or what others want.
Right.
Yeah. And
the balance of it.
Yeah. So you have to kind of try and get that balance. Most difficult to work with, and why? I mean, it depends on the situation, as Walter had said, because in terms of like North, if I'm doing this as an individual, then I'm just gonna go and do, and as and also with West, where you would say, okay, you try to figure it out and look at the big picture and everything, which is a little bit of East, but you'd more want to just take that approach and jump in. Unlike when it's a team approach, then you want to say, okay, this is a team effort, so let's put it out there.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So Claudine, let's pause here on the other questions. Walter, let's get you share the same sign as Claudine, which she speaks about like that balancing of perspectives and depending on situations. So let's pose the first three questions to you as well.
Sure.
What are the strengths and limitations and then styles you like to work?
So my natural strength would be to be and lead the vision. So that it is more East oriented, but over time I've adopted a certain leadership style, which really means that I come from a more of an EQ. I take more time to understand the implications of my thinking on the behaviors that ultimately speaking is going to help us deliver results. So that is the limitation of that is really on the North side, is that again, I am very similar to what Claudine said, is that if I'm in charge of, if I'm going to do it myself, then I can go as fast as I want to go. The problem is when you are facilitating or leading a team and you go and you react to things, often you leave people behind and you're missing out on vital pieces of the puzzle. So again, it's no problem with being a go-getter and doing it. You just have to be very mindful about that. If you go too fast, you lose people, which is the exact counter effect to that. When it comes down to the West, my brain is wired to be an observer of numbers and analytics and look at defects. But I get also very bored very quickly in that sector. So it is, and again, there's room and space for that. You just have to be very mindful about that. So again, what style do I find most difficult to work with and why? And it's really two ways. Is one is people who want to get out of the starting blocks without having done the proper due diligence. They don't have a mastery of the skills or understanding of the current state. And then, of course, in the West, is the indecisiveness of people who get too far and too stuck in the numbers, cannot get out of it to be able to take action. So that's my viewpoint.
So it's really interesting, right? So as we start to talk about what are the strengths, so thank you for sharing that, Walter, and Claudine as well, right? When we think about your strengths, it's easy to talk about the strengths, then we start talking about the limitations of our style, right? Like, like for instance, for myself, let's see if I can go back this way, right? Although I might be Northwest, right? I know my limitation is it depends the stage of project we're at, right? If I'm complete Northwest, I'm like, look, let's do it. We're going to focus on the details. The last thing I want to hear, because we're going to be transparent here, is the South coming up and saying, well, let's talk about the Karen side. And I'm like, we gotta go. We have deadlines, right? We've got, metrics on us. Let's go. But I do understand that there's a place for that, right? So it depends on what stage we're in. So think about then, we talk about, and some of the, let's make this part rhetorical, right? We don't have to answer this, but what do people from other directions and styles need to know about you so you can work together effectively, right? And so when you're doing this activity now as a participant, think about when you're doing this and you bring it to your team, you start to, this is where the communication opens up. And folks say, okay, well, what do you need to know? Well, hey, when you're working with me and I'm under pressure and depending on the stage, I might write a short email to you, not because I want to be rude, right? But because I'm in the let's jump in, let's do it, let's go, right? And then also, if you're a person on the South and you've got that Karen side, you probably say, well, look, I don't want to slow you down. I just know how important it is to get everybody's opinion. I know how important it is to check in with folks, and you might be missing that, So I'm using those examples, picking on me a little bit, but as we think about our team, think about that your team members and your team culture, right? Think about if we don't have opportunities to talk about this, talk about our communication styles, right? We may misread the tone or the style of someone else and automatically think the worst of them, right? If you're trying to talk about, let's get into the details of something, and someone's talking about looking at the big picture, there's some tension there. And we may naturally say, well, that person doesn't like me, or that person is purposely trying to derail the project, or I know because I have to remember this activity. And like, wait a minute, this team member is not my enemy. They're not trying to create a road bump or an obstacle. What's their communication style? So as you think about your teams and the teams you're on and the teams you're leading, right? Think about finding intentional opportunities to use this exercise or exercise like these to have those conversations. And then also probably even write it on a Post-it note or print out something and put it up in your workstation. So that way, when you interact with folks and when they interact with you, they remember, oh, okay, this person, got it. So now when they're planning the next activity or planning the next meeting to advance a project, they're making space for the South. They're making space for the North, for the East, and for the West. All right. So these are some really powerful self-assessment questions and tools to use. So a little bit more about Compass Points Explained, right? So let's break this down a little bit. When we look at the North, East, West, and South folks, right? Like we said, North folks are the take charge, right? They run the daily operation, right? Gets the assignments in early, sometimes with me, sometimes, right? Doesn't have to ask questions.
I really see conflict, by the way.
Yeah. Doesn't have to ask questions to begin the assignments. And then if we think about putting a mosaic or a quilt together, right? They would be the person that stitches it together, right? Stitches it and make sure it works, like I'm going to do the work to make sure that we stay united. When we think about our East folks, these folks are big picture people, right? Has the frame that needs to be filled in. They understand that they need to see the final product and the work that we're going to work with the end. Sorry, I'm getting jumbled up in my words. Working with the end in mind, right? These are big picture thinkers, right? They might even believe in working backwards, understanding by design. And think about that quilt, like we're putting a quilt together, a mosaic. They know what the mosaic will look like in the end because they're the big picture. They want to see what that quilt's going to look like. Okay, let's shift gears. For our West folks, they're going to ask the hard questions, which could be frustrating if you're on the team and you're trying to get through a meeting and someone's like, yeah, but I want to ask this. What about how we're going to do this? Or what's the impact going to be on the customer or the client we're seeking to serve? It could be challenging if you're trying to, do something else, move forward at a different point. But remember, these folks live by inquiry and challenges the team to identify the details, right? And they don't like to start a project until they, typo, are clear about the details, okay? And so now we're talking about the, let me move this little cursor on my side, sorry. Now we're talking about the mosaic again, the quilt. The West folks, those are the folks that are going to film the details of the quilt, of the mosaic. Okay, they're the detail folks. And then the South, last sign here, last but not least, takes in the information, then slows us down, wants to make sure everybody's included, everyone's voice has a voice, and their voice is heard. Not just their voice is heard, has a voice in it. And a quick side note here, just because a team member doesn't participate out loud doesn't mean they don't want to participate, right? It could mean maybe some folks might be, because of the room, the dynamics of the room, they might not feel as confident. They might feel that there's more overpowering voices. They might also feel, relating to the confidence thing, you know what, not everybody, maybe folks don't want to hear my ideas, or I don't want to step on toes. Find the space for, the South makes sure they find the space for these folks because they're part of the team. All right, second bullet point here, includes everyone. The South includes everyone. Make sure that the human side or emotional side is nurtured. Love these folks. Love these folks. Don't get me wrong, I do love these folks. Some of my closest friends are South folks, but then I start getting, right? So there's more on that later. All right, and then thinking about the quilt, right? The quilt or the mosaic, these folks add beauty to it. Make sure that everyone participates in the creation and keeps us all comfortable. Now, here's the thing. When we're creating a quilt or a mosaic, don't we need all of these functions here? We need all, right? Yep. And so we might not identify as a certain sign, but it's okay. Let's make space for it, because at the end of the day, it makes our work better. It helps us get to our vision. So lastly, as we wrap up, right? How might this activity help in understanding a team member's, let's say, you can speak to any of these actually, a communication style, their approach to work or task, maybe their suppressed frustrations. So I'm going to ask, or preference in receiving recognition. I want you to speak to it. How might bringing this activity to your team, whether you're leading it or participating in your team, right? How might this help in understanding your team better?
I mean, if we can identify like where our what styles our team members have, then I guess we can have like a better approach at completing the task, because then we can, who have stronger strength in like detail, we could, that person could do that part of it. Who have a stronger strength in getting it done, then one could get the details, and then and then to make that one big picture. So so I think that's how we could use all those styles for the approach.
I'll put it slightly different. I think that the best teams have people who work in all the four quadrants, where you can have pieces being led by the north, or the west, the south, or the east, and learn from each other. So this is about, as you go through this exercise, it's about learning the intrinsic values and process of individuals. And as a leader, it is your role to help bring that together and to make it synergistic. How can we complement each other's abilities to drive the best possible outcomes? Again, we need to slow down a little bit. That's why the North who want to jump to conclusions and to the end and deliver, which is perfectly fine. To get really to that sense of oneness, we need to make sure that we have an understanding of the people who are going to be doing it. That's why I always say, right, you love those you lead through context, not control, or you lead through buy-in. This is a piece of buy-in, right? It's getting to know and understand how people, because they have to execute on the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I think realistically, if we look at it, as individuals, we kind of have a little of all styles, just that we may be more, might be stronger in one or two combined, but we do have a little bit of all. And, it's most times based on like the situation that you're in or the task that you have to complete,
Yeah.
I think you're both right, and you're both spot on with how it could just shape your perspective on your team as you're communicating. Remember, how we communicate with our team helps shape that our culture of the team. So here we go, right? It can affect the communication styles, right? We have some understanding of our team's communication styles. I love the idea of posting, after doing this activity with the team, everybody posting their compass point on their test, right? Or their workstation, because it reminds folks like, oh, okay, I got it. I got to make room for the West here, right? Understanding whether, because emails, like we've all received an email, we're like, oh, wait, are they throwing an attitude in this? Or are they being short with me? Or is there another motive here? But if you understand the direction that team member is coming from, you might be saying, oh, okay, they're just jumping in and getting it done. Got it. Okay, maybe there's also an opportunity for me to add a little self to this email chain so it's not missed. And then second to lastly, right, suppress frustrations, right? Think about it. I've done this workshop with folks, and we found out where like there's different team members that go, oh my God, that's you? I would have thought you were this side. They're like, no, I'm totally this. They said, well, I get frustrated. I had no idea that's just how you are. I've never worked with you before this, right? And then lastly, the preference in receiving recognition. Think about how you need to recognize a West or a South or a North or an East. Think about how they would like to be recognized, right? And celebrated throughout the process. So I think I got one more slide. Yeah, there we go. Your gift. I'm going to give you a gift. Don't say I didn't give you anything this holiday season, okay? I'm filled with gifts. I'm gonna send to you all, and we'll upload on a server. The activity is actually called Compass Points. It's developed by a team of educators called the School Reform Initiative, right? And so it's a powerful activity. And so yes, some of the context is schools, but it's all about developing communication styles. So I've used this and brought it into different workspaces, different teams, and I guarantee you, I don't guarantee a lot of things, right? So I'm guarantee you that if you try this activity and give it space and give it, time for folks to talk and show who they are and how they show up in the workplace, team communications will gradually become better because you're going to step in the right direction.
Yeah, I think this goes great with the Team Concord building, the SHIELD exercise, bringing, just starting to develop that who you are as a team, what are the attributes you stand for, what are the rules you want to play by, and using this communication tool to better understand where everybody's coming from is really phenomenal.
Thank you. Thank you. So hopefully you all see benefit in it, and I'm happy to hear the outcome of it. Walter, I turn it to you.
All right. Well, Errol, thank you very much for joining us today. It was really a great lesson and a different perspective. And that's what we're trying to bring to the table, right? There's not one way of doing it. There are many different ways of doing it. One thing that we need to remember that, if we walk away from this and do nothing with the information, we don't grow. It is every time you learn something, you take something away from it, you go back to your workplace and work on it over a period of time so you can adopt these new normals or these new habits to improve the communication, which in turn will improve outcomes. So with that said, I'm going to stop the recording.